Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about pointing out bugs. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, how do I point out bugs in the code of my fellow developers? Well, if you find a bug in the system, it's usually, I find, the best to this is sort of one of those reasons why it's such an important thing to build a work culture of, like, you've probably heard this, like, no finger pointing cultures, and the, like, we celebrate mistakes. There are these different flavors of where you talk about a blameless work culture. The reason being is that when you get into the finger pointing of who did what and who caused what bug and so forth, it creates a very bad dynamic because you're focusing usually more on who caused the issue rather than talking about how we can solve it. And in my experience, it doesn't actually help all that much to point out that this person caused a bug or something like that. It's more useful to do something that is maybe, in some cultures this is easier because they sort of get this organically, and some cultures have a more direct, assertive, like in your face type of approach on this. But if you have watched your politicians, at least the ones who sort of keep their temper and keep a level head, it's very rare that you find that unless they have an agenda, they're usually very good at diplomatically explaining a situation, or, like, especially when they made a mistake themselves. They don't really talk about blame in terms of who is responsible unless it serves their purpose, of course, which is a different thing. But the same sort of mentality is something that you should adopt, where when you describe a bug to your coworkers, or even if you know exactly who did it, don't make it about them. Don't make it. Just state that I have found that there is an issue in the system, and then you describe sort of how you recreated it under what circumstances it's happening, and you make it a group thing. You just tell the group, like your team, about it, even if you know exactly who did it. Because I promise you, the person who knows who did it, or that person is going to know that they did it usually, and you adding to, like, the sensation of guilt or issues or whatever, it doesn't really help. Like, it's just something that you would do on a normal day at the very least to make yourself feel better, or if you're a politician, to make yourselves look better in front of, like, your adversaries or so forth. And when you're trying to nurture a healthy work culture, it's better for you to just be focus on the problem. Just state that this is a bug, and usually, if you're working with good people, the person who feels responsible will either sort of just stretch up their hand and say, "Yeah, sorry, that's my bad, I did it," etc., etc. That's by the by, guys, for the girls, boys and girls out there who are going to be team leads. This is a very, very boss move if you do this, because usually when, at least this is what I've always noticed, it's the same thing I did when I was a martial arts teacher. When you make a mistake as the perceived leader, even if your power is more like just a formality or something like that, owning up to your mistake in front of other developers is the best thing that you can possibly do, usually. Because usually when you are the senior or you're the tech lead or something like that, you have to be aware of that your word usually carries more weight, because humans are basically trained from birth to respect authority. So if you have perceived authority, you connecting with people, it's actually very difficult for you to do that. And so if you show that you made a mistake and you are mature enough to understand that you did it, and you are completely transparent about it, it actually helps this thing along. The worst thing you can do is to be immature about it and, like, sort of try to shuffle away from it, to not take any responsibility, because it sets the presidency for the rest of the team. And this is something that is very, very important, because the reality is that if you have someone who is, let's say that there is someone who is causing a lot of bugs, the frequency of the issues is the thing that you should be looking for, not necessarily blaming them, because just saying out loud to people in a very public way that they did a bad thing and so forth doesn't really help much. And it's usually better for everybody involved to take a less direct approach, which is sort of in a sense a way it's a strategy within politics as well, where you don't want to be seen as someone who's just like firing off against somebody else. It's better for you to sort of highlight that there are issues and then let the people who are actually in a management position or whoever figure out that by themselves. And if it is the case that you see that someone is causing bugs all the time, raise it to your manager, or like talk to them about it, like if you want to give them a chance and see if you can help them first and foremost. If there's nothing really there, like they don't really see an issue and so forth, but the people are seeing an issue apart from them, raise it with your manager and let them sort of take care of it. Don't, as I said, don't unnecessarily create this conflict situation where it's you against them, or like where you, because I've seen this happen a few times, guys, where there are some developers who take personal enjoyment from getting the other developer, to catching them, to either find that they made a mistake in the code, or they did something bad in a code review, like because they take personal pleasure, or it's almost a little bit sadistic. They take personal pleasure in seeing other people fail and being able to blame them for it, and that is a recipe for really big problems. And if you are a team lead, I promise you this, no level of skill is worth that. Just if you see that sort of behavior, kill it immediately and get rid of that person if they don't stop. So what I want you to take away from this is that the way to usually point out that there's a bug or something in the system to your other developers is to actually don't mention any names. Don't make it about who did the thing. Talk about the issue, show what you found, that this is something we should probably fix, and then just have an open dialogue about, okay, what is the next step. And usually when you describe the bug without being confrontational and not without focusing on who made the mistake, that's irrelevant now. If we have a problem, we need to fix it, and then you focus on fixing it rather than who did it. Usually you find that people relax more when they don't feel like they're gonna get people jumping down their throat because they made a mistake. And in many cases it's actually going to make people want to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm sorry, I made this mistake, and then you can talk about, okay, is there something we can do to not make this happen in the future? And everybody makes mistakes, that sort of thing, right? And as I was saying, pro tip for you who are going to take over your own team: if you show that you can be a leader or a boss or whatever you are and make mistakes and still own up to those mistakes in front of your people, they will respect you for it. I promise you they will. It sets a very, very good tone, and it's a sign of real personal security and good leadership if you can do that. And the last part of it is to make sure that if you see that this is happening all the time and you point it out, just continue as is. Try to keep keep the morale up, even if it's happening over and over, and then in private talk to the person if it's really, really troublesome, and if there's no other solution, talk a little bit in private with your manager and see if there's something you can do. Don't make a spectacle of this thing. Don't try to get that sadistic part of you to any type of energy or anything like that. Treat it as a true professional. This is an issue, we'll fix it, and that's the end of it. Have a great day.